היי סטויקס פיטנס. אז היום יש לנו פרק ממש מיוחד בפודקאסט, פרק שרציתי לעשות אותו מזמן, פרק עם המאמן שלי, הולמס. זה המאמן שאני עובד איתו כבר די הרבה זמן, מאוגוסט 2019 אנחנו עובדים ביחד, הוא מלווה אותי מרחוק, הוא מגיע, כרגע הוא נמצא בברצלונה, במקור הוא מ-UK, הוא כבר מלא שנים בתחום, מתחרה תקופה מסוימת בקרוספיט, מלווה ספורטאים, אם אני לא טועה, היו גם כמה ספורטאים שהגיעו לגיימס, הוא עובד עם הרבה אוכלוסיות שונות, ויש לו המון ניסיון וידע, הוא מעביר סמינרים של קרוספיט ווייטליפטינג באירופה, ויש לו הרבה מה להגיד. אנחנו הולכים לדבר קצת על קרוספיט, קצת על אימונים, מה השתנה בהם, במהלך השנים, איך צריך לגשת לאימונים, אנחנו נדבר קצת על הסגר, על קורונה, אנחנו כמובן נדבר על למה מאמנים צריכים מאמנים, ובכללי איך הוא מסתכל על הדברים. אנחנו הולכים לדבר הרבה גם על כל נושא של ליווי מרחוק, כן? ולי היה מאוד חשוב לשמוע ממנו את הדעה שלו, כי זה מה שהוא עושה עכשיו, כן? זה הג'וב שלו, זה מה שהוא עושה, הוא מלווה מתאמנים מרחוק, וזה הכל. אין לו בוקס שהוא מחזיק אותו, הוא לא מעביר מוני קבוצה, מה שהוא עושה זה מלווה מתאמנים מרחוק, ברימוט קואוצ'ינג, והוא זה כבר לאורך די הרבה זמן, אז יש לו מספיק ניסיון וכזה וידע שהוא יכול לתת לנו. אז הפודקאסט יהיה באנגלית, אז אני מתנצל, כתוביות לא יהיו, קצת קשוח בשבילי עכשיו פודקאסט של שעה לעשות כתוביות, אבל מקווה שתהנו, ממש אשמח שתגיבו, תעשו לייק, תעשו סאבסקרייב. יאללה, זה פרק שאני מאוד התלהבתי ממנו, גם קצת מתרגש בפודקאסט כי הרבה זמן רציתי לעשות את זה ואיכשהו לקח ככה זמן עד שיצאנו עם זה. יאללה, הולמס, סטויקס פודקאסט. Okay, so today I'm with LJ Holmes, and we'll talk about fitness, CrossFit. He's my coach, and I think he has a lot of experience and knowledge, and I don't know where this conversation will take us, but here we are. So I would like to start with maybe you tell my audience or people that will listen to this podcast, who are you?
So I'm Luke. I've been working with you, Vlad, for just under a year, I think. I think we started working together.
Yeah, I think we started in September.
Yeah, last summer. So currently I'm based in Barcelona. I work as a remote coach. I'm originally from the UK. Over the last 10 years, I've been coaching CrossFit, and it's taken me from the UK to the Middle East, to the US, back to the UK, and now here in Barcelona. So I've coached in many different countries and many different gyms, and I've sort of had a bit of I've had great experiences at CrossFit gyms, but then also had not so great experiences coaching as well. And I've sort of played every role you can in a CrossFit gym. And I started remote coaching about 5 years ago, and I think mainly just because I like the idea of being able to do my own work completely, work my own hours, and as well as that, you know, the attraction of eventually trying to be able to train as much as I wanted to, because at the time I was a competitive athlete, and I was trying to sort of make it to regionals again. I made it originally in like 2014, but then failed for 4 or 5 years after that. But yeah, I had great experiences whilst I was in the Middle East, also in the US, and remote coaching has been great. I've developed quite a lot as a coach whilst I've been going through that. Initially, it was very much giving people workouts and trying to make sure that people were doing some structured strength work, and then going into a Metcon and just pretty much just organizing the training to something that sort of made a little bit of sense. And then now to the point where I would say about a third of my clientele are actually competitive, a third of my clientele sort of trying to be competitive and they have sort of aspirations of being competitive, and then a third are more sort of general population and focused on health and longevity and things like that. And it's I've had to, as I've sort of widened my scope of what I do, I've had to develop my skills in other areas as well, which I think has been great, because you know, if there's one thing that I think people shouldn't do in sort of the coaching world is sort of like try to get too narrow in their view and their focus. And I think that drawing upon principles in, your nutrition and things like that will actually help with, framing certain things in fitness and developing the skills required to be a competitive athlete. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I'll give you something non-CrossFit-y. I've just recently got a dog who's 6 months old, and he's a fucking crazy dog, but he's great. So I enjoy doing that and walking the dog a few times a day. And then also I've just started jiu-jitsu as well. So I've dropped the jump rope and the barbell down for a little bit, although I still do a bit of CrossFit on the side. And I've put on the gi, and now I'm getting my ass kicked. Obviously, before this whole quarantine situation, I think jiu-jitsu is probably the sport that is, you could say, most affected by social distancing. So, so there you go, Vlad. There's a little bit of everything for you.
Okay. So you already started to talk about it, but the first question I have is, you said that you're doing remote coaching for 5 years, which means you're kind of a pioneer of sorts in, I think in CrossFit, because 5 years ago, remote coaching was something new. Maybe not a lot of people did that. I remember, 5 years ago, most of the stuff you could find online is just group-based programming, right? Had comp train and stuff like this, and remote coaches that work individually with athletes was something new. And I want to ask you, how was it different what you did 5 years ago to what you're doing now as a remote coach?
Well,
because I believe it should be different, because when you started, you didn't have a lot of information about it. You can learn. You had to trust yourself and, go through this by yourself and find out what works and what doesn't. So I think it should be interesting to hear what changed in 5 years.
I'd say that when I started out, I was quite lucky. I was working sort of under the guidance of my coach at the time, who's Andy Edwards, and we still work together actually now. And he coaches Jamie Green as well as a number of other top athletes. And I was lucky enough just to be able to pick his brains whenever I wanted to. We shared resources, so we would always share. We'd obviously be downloading tons of ebooks and looking at lots of different programming and things like that. So we'd sort of have a collective resource pool. And there was another guy as well, Ollie Mansbridge, who now runs Strength and Depth, the Sanctional, and he was remote coaching at the time. So I was lucky I had those two people to sort of see over what I was doing. And I had just taken my program design course through OPEX. So that was good. That was pretty informative. But the level of my understanding around these things was fairly low. So it was very much, okay, you need to work on your strength. So I'm going to give you a strength program that I saw on the internet, and then I'm going to add on, some conditioning, and I'm going to make sure you're working on your weaknesses. We're going to do a bit of aerobic work. I don't really know how that works too much, so I'm going to use the stuff that I learned on the course. And it was very much sort of plug and play type stuff, and there wasn't really much attention being paid to the very holistic picture. I didn't really talk to people about their nutrition or their lifestyle or their sleep or anything like that in the early stages. And then that's something that's obviously developed over time. And I think sort of through my own evolution as an athlete, I then started to figure out the type of things that the people would need that I was working with. So to sort of give you an idea, I made it to the Asia Regional in 2014. And in my honest opinion, anyone who trained twice a day, did something that was fairly structured and knew how to dig deep and hurt during open workouts, and also was able to go through the open strategically at that stage. I'm going to do a workout on Friday and I'm going to repeat on Monday, and I'm going to make sure I rest and recover in between, and I'm going to be fairly tactical in how I do it. Anyone who did that process, I think, would have made it to regionals at that point. But over time, I noticed that people who I was competing with were starting to up their game, and nothing really in the training perspective had changed. But I'd noticed that over time, I was like, okay, I had, in previous relationships and things like that, I would go out for food and I would be staying up late, and I wouldn't really be having everything in my life aligned towards my goals within fitness. And I think that I started to realize, as those things happened to me personally, those were the type of things that had the biggest effect on the clients that I work with. So when I speak with clients and when I'm talking with them right now, it's very much the first conversations we're having are around a program, are around what don't you like in CrossFit, are around, okay, what are the types of things you've done previously in your training. And what I'm thinking about in the background and what I'm trying to get more information on is what are they doing every day outside of training? How are they eating? How are they sleeping? And what's their relationship like with their training? What were they doing previously with their training? And what was their sort of entry into CrossFit and into competing? And what did that look like? Where did their motivations lie? So now the picture is a lot more holistic. I would say it's a lot messier for me. It's not, a lot of people think that you gain more clarity over time as you go through these types of things, but I think that actually just gets messier. But you learn principles and you understand and you see trends and things like that gives you a little bit of an easier time into sort of navigating through that. You don't really understand too much at an early stage in your coaching. So it's, you see it as sets and reps and progressions over 3 weeks and then a deload and this and that and the other. And whilst that is still very prevalent within the program design and the process of coaching people, it's not. And you see that all the time with people who are very, very successful and they don't necessarily do the best programming or the most appropriate program. You see people who are very switched on with their lifestyle practices and how they train, and they're very, they sort of go through what you would say is more of a brute force method. And we see this in the sport so much with people literally at the top of the sport. They're not good examples of how to train for people who are trying to get into the sport or people who are trying to get to that point. And that's the reason why they're at the top, is because they can withstand a lot of CrossFit and they can withstand a lot of intensity and they can handle it. And I would even argue to say that they might not be doing the most appropriate thing, but guess what? Those people self-organize and they respond so much better to everything that other people don't. So they can just do what they want. They can follow, and as much as people don't like to hear that, it's like, that's one of the things I would say that in this sport, it separates it a lot more from the sporting experiences that we may have had growing up, where we were like, okay, if I work on my, for me, I played rugby. So, I was thinking, all right, I'm a scrum half. If I pass the ball, I'm in my position, you pass the ball the most in the game, right? If I pass the ball 50 times off my right hand and my left hand every single day, that's going to put me in a pretty good position. And, you develop flow and you develop things like that. And I'm trying to sort of lost my trail of thought. What I'm trying to say is that the differences that we have as individuals separates us so much that the training and the process and the journey to being better should not be the same. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, if you're playing a team sport and you have, for me, there was 29 other people on the pitch. Really, like my role is to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that every now and then. A base level of fitness, some skills here, some skills there, a good understanding of the game, this type of stuff. Like, that's what you need. Whereas in CrossFit, it's like, okay, you got this 7-minute AMRAP of like messing yourself up right now. And guess what? There's literally like no way you can get out of this. Like it's all you, and you've got to experience that and you've got to go through that the whole way through. I suppose those people who have had backgrounds in gymnastics and weightlifting and individual sports like track and field, they probably are off on a better footing than those people who have played team sports. But the training and the route to success, you could call it, is not as linear and is not as simple as it is in other sports in CrossFit.
Yeah, I totally get it. I think you answered the question even better than I thought. But well, one thing that kind of I came to you without, we didn't meet before. I just called you, kind of sent you an email. And how I found out about you is I followed your Instagram page with the workouts you were putting there. And you have your, I think it's called base, right? The base programming.
Yeah.
And you were putting the workouts in there. And I always was looking for stuff, to take inspiration from. And when I saw this, I was like, okay, this is the way I like to coach. It's very structured. and it's a lot about just good athletic performance, not about CrossFit itself. And here and there is CrossFit. And this is what I liked about it. And then I said, okay, I would like to talk to you and see, if we can start working together. And the second thing was, well, I saw you as from distance without knowing you. I saw you someone that does remote coaching and does it probably more than I do and has more experience. And the second thing is for me kind of to being mentored by you, just by taking example, working with you and seeing what you do and taking example and trying to improve the way I train or kind of work with my athletes. So that was the second reason. But the first one was kind of the structured way you put your workouts. Sometimes people say that in powerlifting communities, people say that, when you hire a coach, you hire his coach, because your coach will be always biased by the things that his coach writes to him. So, if your coach writes RP kind of based strength work, you'll get RPs based strength work.
Yeah.
And when I saw your program, I was like, yeah, this is what I like. This is how I look at things. After I did my OPEX course, it really changed the way I look to see CrossFit, because before this, CrossFit was really marketed. You saw Rich running just doing CrossFit 3 times a day, just couplets and triplets 3 times a day. You couldn't find any structure in there. It was just working so hard. And that was kind of my understanding of it. I was like, okay, you should just work really hard, do a lot of CrossFit, you'll be fine. And then you kind of get to this point when you understand, okay, you're not Rich running. You don't have an option to work out 3 times a day and have a nap between. You have only maybe 2 hours a day, not every day, and you'll be pretty tired when you go to the workout. So you need to think how you can optimize your workouts to really make some progress. And when I saw your style of building the workouts, coaching, I said, okay, we should try. And I would like to ask you, so how are you looking at CrossFit and building, program design for athletes? What's kind of your thought process when you start building, a program for a month, 2 months, or whatever?
I'd say that there's definitely certain things that I've picked up over the years from like the strength training community, and just and I would say that my bias is a little bit more towards that. And I think that I've always enjoyed weightlifting, and I've always enjoyed the general culture around strength training. So I've sort of taken a bit of this idea of, okay, you have a strength progression going on, you have something else going on in the background, you have bits and pieces of CrossFit here and there. Yeah, I'd say that to sort of give you like bare bones, I like to think of training as like a month at a time. And I like to think the sort of CrossFit is like always want to have variance. And I'm like, okay, well, if you can just be patient with me for a month at a time, that's going to be good, because what we can do is we can just focus on this one thing, and then we can make a little pivot for the next month, and a little pivot for the next month, and a little pivot. And, over the course of 2-3 months, you're not probably going to see too many changes. You're going to see changes in your program, but over the course of, say, for instance, a year, there's probably going to be some substantial changes. And I think that my understanding has been that people just go through sort of cycles, and they go through training, and this just sort of becomes like this cyclical process that every time you go to the open, you're just a little bit more well-rounded, and every time you go to the thing. And I think what the issue is that most people, when they think about training, they think about fitness, is very destination oriented, and it's very much about, I need to be here by the next open, and I need to be here. And it's always very much focused on that. And no one really pays attention to like, where am I going to be in 5 years' time? What is this going to look like then? Because if you can do that, the one person who I think is a prime example of like how to approach training, and I know it's different for CrossFit, but Ed Cohen has said that he would essentially plan out a year in his sort of 12-week cycles or whatever. He would use the same cycle, but he would just very much be of the mind when he started out of like, well, if I can add on this amount to every single cycle onto my total, and I can do that over the course of 5 years, oh shit, I'll be the best in the world. And he did that, and he just went through with it. But the issue is that people are very focused on what is in their immediate future, and they don't really have that focus on, okay, where is this going to be in a number of years' time? So I like to try to sort of give people like this idea of being patient for a month, and then things will change and you'll be working through a new progression. And I think through my own training as well, like I've probably experienced the best results doing that type of stuff. But when I am programming, I like to make sure that there's some things working on in the background all the time. You know, I think that, you know, once someone has done the sport for a while, they tend to be at a point where their weakness is always going to be their weakness and their strength is always going to be their strength. And that's pretty much it. There's none of this, you know, like if, for instance, I work with an athlete who is over 6 feet tall, he's knocking around about 100 kilos plus. And it's like, okay, well, guess what? Gymnastics and handstand push-ups and all this type of stuff is never going to be something you're going to really enjoy. So we just need to constantly be working on it and get busy with it. It's not about thinking that all of a sudden you're going to turn into Chris Spieler over the course of 12 weeks. That shit ain't going to happen. But if you can just be patient and you can just be okay with having a little bit more of a stoic attitude with your training and how you're doing it, right? If you can be okay with that type of stuff, I think you've got a good chance of like a long-term career in the sport. And I think that for years and years and years, I personally was very impatient with things, and I was always focusing on the next open. I was never focusing. And I tell you what, I wasn't able to enjoy holidays. I wasn't able to enjoy times of like, I was very reactionary with everything I did, and I think that is pretty much the majority of the people who are involved in CrossFit as a competitive sport, and it just led to lack of results, lack of like feeling rested out of it. And you know, from those experiences, I just try to make sure that I'm instilling a little bit more patience into people and getting them to just think about, okay, well, you know, this is what it's going to be like, you know, through this period of time, but at the same time as well, making sure that people aren't too focused on the like cycle to cycle, you know, this cycle we're focusing on this cycle we're focusing on that, because sometimes that just, it can lead to just I think that sometimes it just pays, it gives attention to people's sort of need to feel like they're catching up or whatever. And it's just like, training should be training. You're in the gym for 2 hours a day, every day for six days a week. And, you know, you have a day off and you make sure that you got, you know, X, Y, and Z sorted out in your everyday life. And that's it. If you want to be good at the sport, that's what it requires at the minimum. Yeah. If you can do a double day, great. You can do that 3 times a week. And then if you can do that 6 days a week, we can eventually get to that. But like, you know, there's no point in, and you know, I see it all the time, is like, I'm going to do 2 training sessions a day, every day. Like the common thing I see is when people ask for like an AM aerobic training session or whatever, they want to do it every day, but then the compliance is not there. And that's one of the things I wasn't great with with my coaching, is I would give people what they wanted in that respect. I would play to sort of their feeling of catching up and having to catch up. And then eventually I was like, nope, I'm going to be a little bit more stubborn. I'm just basically going to say, okay, cool, I'll give you two a week, see how you go. And then we'll give you 3 weeks, see how you go. And then we'll go from there. And it's not necessarily about trying to make sure that, as a coach, it's really important you don't feed into that. And I've got a mentor, like a business coach, who's basically my old coach as well. I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing this competitive thing anymore, so I want to, you know, be better as a coach. So I'm going to hire you as my business coach now. It was a very, very easy segue, because like majority of our catch ups would be based around like productivity and work, and not really about training, because I sort of knew what was going on in it. And like he said that, you know, and I was sort of talking about, you know, what is the role of the coach? And we're having this very sort of like arbitrary conversation, but he was pretty much just said, look, it's almost similar to like parenting, and on like terms of like, whatever this athlete is going to do, they're going to do. And your goal as a coach is to just make sure they're not doing stupid shit, to make sure that you're not, you know, fucking them up in any way, and just to make sure that you're not like playing into their, you know, their sort of like, how can I say this in a polite way? You're not playing into them being mental or like having their crazy ideas and just you're there as a guide through that process, but you have to like let them do their own thing and make their mistakes. So that's where they learn the most. And I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, no, I think you touched this point about, when you were talking, I just remembered our first kind of catch-up call, and we were talking about how many times a week I can work out. And I was just after my trip to USA for a month when I wasn't really working out. And the first thing I said was like, I can do 5 workouts, but from what I know about myself and from what I see from my athletes, you should probably program 4, because 5th will not happen. And it's kind of the same. Yeah, people always say when you ask athletes to start to work with, how many times a week can you work out? And they always add 1 more day. They always add 1 more workout. It always sounds better than it will really be. And then you kind of, you cut one of those days, you give it to them, you see if it works. And if it works, you just add more days or more workouts. But it's always better kind of to start with less and then progress them through. And yeah, I get it now in time of quarantine. Here in Israel, we have quarantine. You can see all the stuff that you're talking about athletes that are looking for doing just more or more hard stuff or adding. I get sometimes I just get messages. How about I will add this hero workout on Friday? And I'm like, I will not program it to you. You will not get my kind of agreement. But if you want to do it, you can. Yeah, but make sure that you did all the workouts that I programmed, because kind of, this is the relationship. Like, he will do this workout if he wants to.
Yeah.
Even if I think it's bad for him, still he will do it because he wants to. And so, yeah, it's hard to find, this balance between being, not kind of, I don't know, just being a guide and not being client centric, and not coach centric.
Yeah, completely. I think you have to let people do their thing, and I think that there's an element of just being relaxed with it. Like, I think so I've had like the best coaches I've worked with have tended to be, yeah, just do that, cool, yeah, no worries. I'm like on a Saturday, I used to like keep some flexibility on a Saturday, because I would be seeing it as like, all right, it's the last day of the week, throw in some intensity, work out with some people. If I'm going to do something with some other people, it's fine. And I would have things to work on my program, and I would feel sort of like, oh, I need to do this and I need to do this. And I would ask coach permission, and he'd be like, yeah, just do it, go get into it. And I think I developed over, and this is sort of like where I see, we were discussing this before, like where we see the best in the world, they just have it in there. This is like, yep, I'm going to work out 3 times a day, and I don't really know what I'm going to be doing next week, but it's in the diary and it's going to happen. So I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm doing stuff that I don't really enjoy and stuff that I need to work on, and a little bit of the stuff that I need to do to stay good at the sport. And through that brute force method, they're able to just keep that going. And I think that if people have a little bit more of and I would say that, like, if you are an athlete and you are looking to go down a direction that's going to be effective, align yourself with a coach who you think, who you trust. You trust what they do, right? Align yourself with a coach who probably has a similar view to fitness and developing their fitness as you do as well. And then literally just put in your calendar your training time every single day, keep it the same. And that's it. 6 days a week, you do it. That's how most coaches work. But as much as you can, if you really want to be good at the sport, you've just got to have it done like every day, and it's just got to be a part of your daily existence. It can't be you can't be worrying about the program or worrying about this or worrying about that. It's just you got to go in, you got to be in operator mode, you got to go. And I think that's one thing as a coach I really struggled with, because I was always thinking about, okay, is this effective? Is this, and this, and this. And then after a while, I was like, actually, nope. I was like, when I'm in the gym and I'm training for those 2 hours, I turn my coach's hat off completely. I don't even think about program design. I used to write my workout up on the whiteboard, and I used to go through it, and I used to put a line through everything that I would complete. And at the end of it, I would sit down, put my results in for 10 minutes, and then that was it. I would leave my training for the day, and I would leave my own fitness for the day, But I think that, if you're an athlete and you're trying to get into, you're trying to be successful with the sport, you've just got to have it fixed in.
But what if you're not an athlete? Because now you said that you kind of transitioned into this more of a, kind of different kind of clients. You had competitive CrossFitters or people who want to compete, and now you have athletes that maybe don't even want to compete. They just have some different fitness goals. How should what would be your approach to those athletes? I call them athletes, but to those clients that just want to be fit, to get better.
I mean, for me personally, I place a lot less emphasis on what they do. Their programming is a lot more based around like just stuff they enjoy, stuff that's going to keep them, not make sure they're not injured. Bring the intensity level down, so they're not, tapping into that shit a couple of times a week.
The shitty shit.
Yeah, right. Like, there's no need for that. And I think that if they can sort of develop like a time during the day where they train, and that can be 3 times a week, that can be 4 times a week. I think the main difference is if you compete in fitness, there is so much to be good at. There's so much you need to develop. If you really want to push this as hard as you can, you've got to be doing 6 days a week, or you've got to like have a solid and set routine. But if you don't have those goals and you're literally just looking to be fit, then you've got to make sure there's enjoyment with it. You've got to make sure that there's flexibility with it as well. And, I've got an example of a client who's 53 years old. He likes to do sailing. He likes to go snowboarding. He likes sort of the more sort of extreme sports type stuff. And, for him, like, his programming is 3 days a week. He does like a gymnastics personal training session once per week, and he plays around with stuff like that. And then he sends me what he does, and I implement that and I thread that into his programming. And I'm sort of there just to sort of like have a catch up with him, just to sort of have a little bit of like an overview of everything that's going on, and just to make sure that he's got enough balance in his training, that he's, his shoulder injury is not causing him too much aggravation for when he does his gymnastics or when he does his sailing, and make sure that he feels fit for when he has to do his days of snowboarding and this type of stuff. And it's like, for that person, fitness is very much just more about like, okay, where can I fit it in with my day and my work, and how does it fit into the sort of like you're not turning all of the, you could say you're not turning everything towards the angle of competitive fitness like a competitive fitness athlete is. You are trying to make sure that your fitness and your training is complementing everything else in your life. So it's a little bit of a different outlook. One of the things I've noticed with this quarantine situation, and all of my clients that I work with, a couple of them have access to gyms, but all of them are pretty much in a situation that's very similar to what you were just describing there. For a lot of people, I've noticed that like fitness plays a lot more than just being fit. It's actually what gets them. It's the reason why they wake up at 6 o'clock every morning. It's the reason why they feel energetic when they go to work. It's the reason why I had a couple of clients who started working from home, so they started training later, and they just noticed that their whole schedule and their energy throughout the day felt like shit. So then I was like, okay, well, let's just adjust it back. Let's go back to the morning. And all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, I just realized the importance of this. They thought that they were working on trying to improve their like 5K road time, but in actual fact, like their training in that 60 minutes a day was really, really important, because they just had better mental acuity throughout the day, and they were just sharper than all of their colleagues, and they feel good about that because they're driven people.
Yeah, it's, everyone always talks about how important fitness is, just to be a better human being, but it's kind of hard to point a finger on those situations until kind of now. Like you were saying, if you're not working out in the morning as you used to work out, and you see that your energy levels are low and you just feel shitty throughout the whole day, then, well, to this workout, each workout has a lot of value for you and kind of makes your day. And it's really hard sometimes to explain this, because I always try to tell kind of, to tell this story to all the through all the media and promotions and everything. And I think even CrossFit itself kind of tries to say this, if you will work out, if you will do kind of fitness, you will be a fitter and will complement your life. But it's kind of hard to really point a finger to this and put, I did this workout, that's why I got promotion at my job. It doesn't really happen. So it's really vague. But one more question that I have had, because now I have this platform to ask those things. Why am I doing good mornings, Captain Morgans, and all the planks that I have in my program? Because, by the way, all my athletes are getting them now too. When they ask me, I find a good reason why they need to do it.
So you're not asking for yourself.
I'm asking for everyone who works with me. When next time they get star plank, they should know why.
I think that. What can I say? I think that a lot of CrossFit athletes, or a lot of people who get into CrossFit, I think they sort of go through, they sort of find effectiveness in going through these global movements. And what I mean by that is going through
thrusters.
Thrusters and burpees and movements that involve a lot of different things going on, right? And they find great intensity in this. But what tends to happen is that the movements break down after a while. There's not really any, the one thing that I think that CrossFit hit the nail on the head with, and I'm not too sure if that reference, do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah,
Yeah, cool. All right.
Yeah.
I just sometimes I speak in like
is your slang understandable? It's okay.
Yeah. All right. I was speaking like British colloquialisms, and it's like okay. But what I think that core to extremity is so. This is something that should be literally drilled in from day one of an on-ramp. And it should be like core to extremity, core to extremity, core to extremity. Repeat after me 500 times. And I'm not going to teach you how to do an air squat until you've done that. And it's like, that's like that one thing I've noticed is like, when I look at movement now, just based off of just like, doing a little bit of reading and just understanding things from that perspective. Check out, like things like Stuart McGill. His Stuart McGill's big three. There's like 3 movements and people are like, these are so easy. That doesn't really do anything. And it's just like, it teaches you sort of the motor control within bracing, which is very, very important. And for you to learn it, it needs to be easy and it needs to be, the core stability work that I give you is essentially that. Is similar iterations of that, and there's I tend to break core movements up into anti-rotation, anti-flexion, and then sort of more integrative. So think of like a Turkish get-up, sit-up, where you're actually like using your core to create movement. So I go through sort of those 3 things, and I have those just moving on in the background with most people's programs. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certain people that need to be working on certain things a little bit more. Some people might be needing working on hip flexion whilst they're going through some of these. Some people might need to work on their posterior chain strength a little bit more. But generally speaking, I want to make sure that my athletes are hitting a couple of different core variations every single week. And I like to mix it up as well because, like you can do side planks, but if you're doing a Captain Morgan, it's like, that adding in some element of, adductor stability, hip flexor strength, coordination, all of those types of things as well. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. And credit to the guys from Power Athlete, like the core work that they have people going through. And this is where I found the movement, Captain Morgan. But the core work movement that they have people going through are very much focused towards the field athlete who is required to change directions, all of these very a lot more athletic things than CrossFit do. And I sort of think that if you can pull from that world and you can get an athlete pretty good at those movements and they can express core stability whilst going through, lots of different moving parts, you could say, then their ability to do that in touch and go deadlifts is going to be a lot better. But I do think that, when you're looking at core work for a CrossFit athlete, you also have to look at it from a sport specific angle as well. And you have to think of, what their ability is like with toes to bar and GHD sit up and their endurance with those movements specifically. But then you also, I think first and foremost, you have to look at it from a injury prevention, and you have to look at it from just making sure training is looking balanced and staying balanced.
Yeah. It's like when I get those, the core pieces, sometimes I do them with pleasure. Sometimes I do them just because they're there. Sometimes I don't do them, like yesterday, because I had thrusters with 60 kilos and burpees. And after this, I had some core movements, and I wasn't just mentally ready for this. So sometimes I miss, and they just write, nope, you love my comments. Nope, didn't do it. Okay. So, but most of the times I try to, I do them. But when I got an understanding in those kind of core movements was when I did my OPEX course. And then in the OPEX course, kind of the assessment starts with side planks, glute bridges, and they even gave some numbers. So like what the person should kind of hold before you kind of progress them. And I was like, okay, let's try. And then I tried the side plank, and I was like, 60 seconds on one side, 90 seconds on the other side. And I'm like, that's not real athletic. That's pretty bad, actually. It's like, and then I started to understand kind of the importance of this, because if I can't really stabilize my spine without any weights, just holding a position for some time, then why should I do kind of touch and go deadlifts and thrusters and snatches? And then you can see a lot of even in the physiotherapy kind of field and everything. So back injuries, I was saying it's like a voodoo magic. No one knows what really happens. Because if you're doing a screening, it can show something really bad and you're asymptomatic. It can show something amazing and you have pain, you can't get up in the morning. So there's I can't really say, you have this, that's why it hurts. Or you have this, that's why it hurts. And those kind of core movements, they always I'm thinking about them as, okay, if someone can't hold a good side plank, maybe it will be a reason for back pain later. Or maybe it will be a reason why he can't kind of do the last set of thrusters unbroken, because he can't really stabilize himself. So I get the point why I get them. I was just asking because it's fun to laugh about those movements. And I think that's a it's a good insight for all those CrossFitters that do a lot of stuff. What else have we talked a little bit before? What should we talk about? And one of the things I wanted to ask is, just about CrossFit itself. What do you think about now after you started kind of jiu-jitsu, and we can connect the dots? Because CrossFit was always marketed as, this GPP program for everyone, everywhere, whatever you're doing. Even the Ghost, the workout, right? They had kind of a marketing campaign, but I think it was, what's his name? Ghost is his kind of nickname, right?
Yeah, it was I think it was a
boxer.
It was a boxer that Dave Castro sort of knew, and they what is the workout again? Is it like
I think it's
burpees and double unders.
Burpees and double unders, yeah, and 6 rounds with 1 minute rest. 6 rounds, yeah, probably. So, and they kind of CrossFit was always marketed like this is the fitness method every athlete should do to kind of make his sport performance better. And we spoke about your jiu-jitsu, and you talked just before the podcast, you told me a story about your coach that just does only jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And kind of, I want to ask, what is your opinion about CrossFit as a GPP program for other sports? Is this the right way, or maybe we should do something else? Maybe we should look at it a little bit. Because kind of this, blunt method, you should do thrusters and pull-ups and you'll get better at jiu-jitsu. I don't know. Yeah. So what's your opinion about it?
Don't get me wrong. Like I've gone into jiu-jitsu, and there's been people who've been like, I finished rolling with them and they're like, fucking hell, you're a lot stronger than I thought you'd be. And I'll be like, yeah, sort of, yeah. And like in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to lift weights really, really heavy for quite a number of years. But I think that generally speaking, if you have an athlete who's not doing anything, or even then, like I think that the majority of athletes and what they do for their strength and conditioning isn't effective. the example I like to give is, say, for instance, the understanding of fitness, say, for instance, of like a Premiership football player isn't great because, or based off of like what I've seen, what I've heard, it isn't great because their understanding of fitness is from their fitness coaches, who are essentially just people who played the sport before, and they're using the same reused methods from years ago. So it's still, we run around the pitch for our fitness. And I think of the things that I used to do with rugby. And for instance, we had a guy who was involved within a professional circuit, a local club. And we used to do a lot of like just wrestling type stuff for conditioning pre-season, and a lot of running. And some of the stuff was really not specific at all. If you have someone who's not really doing stuff that's, I think the wrestling was specific, but the running and endurance stuff wasn't. It was just more aimed at like a long distance running athlete, where it's like we actually need to sprint in short bouts. I think if you have someone who's not doing, to sort of get back to your point, if they're not doing anything that's particularly effective, then giving them CrossFit is varied enough to make sure that they have like a little bit more broad fitness. But if you have someone who's like really, really focusing on trying to excel in their sport as much as they can, you've got to make sure that there's like more specificity towards that. So for me, I'm thinking of like field sports. There's a lot more elements of like power and speed involved within that. And I've been thinking about my jiu-jitsu training and how can I get what I do in the gym to be transferable to that. But and I think that I'm a little bit more biased towards that because I enjoy that type of stuff. Whereas in actual fact, like I sort of need to be getting into a little bit more like gymnastic strength. I need to be getting into some sort of like, some like Ido Portal style crawling on the floor and all this type of thing. I don't really want to do that. But like, I mean, that's probably going to be more effective for something like jiu-jitsu. CrossFit, on the other hand, it's going to give you a nice broad brush of different things. You're going to be exposed to a lot of different things. But in all fairness, just because you've matched the workout time domain to the time domain of your sport, it doesn't mean it's specific. It's like, okay, all right, like Fight Gone Bad. Fight Gone Bad is a minute on a 5 rounds, which is a championship fight. It was made for BJ Penn, right? So you got 5 global movements and you are working high power. It's the typical CrossFit stuff. It's like,
wall balls, what is some of the high pulls, push press, box jumps, rowing.
Yeah. And if you look at that, it's like there's a level of interference on all of those movements. Wall balls, push press, high pulls, rowing, the box jump is adding in that sort of more metabolic work. But the thing is that they're not going back to back. So you're sort of going like pushing, you're going pushing, pulling, and in that way it elicits a little bit more intensity. But just because you've matched the time domain to the fight doesn't mean that it's sport specific. What is going to be sport specific? Doing it. And doing it more and more and more. Like I had an experience like in one of my first sessions, there was a competition that was happening maybe like in a week or two's time. And there was a couple of people who were going in for their competition. So when we were rolling, they would just stay on the mats, even if they lost. And it would literally just be, and I don't think it was particularly effective in developing their conditioning, but what it was effective in doing was sort of developing their like mental acuity whilst they were fatigued. So if you are looking to be more sport specific, and if you're looking for a good specific conditioning program, the sport is your number one to do. For rugby, a simple one is you go from a 15-a-side game to a 7-a-side game, and all of a sudden you have to run a lot more. So you just basically increase that element of the game. There's certain things you can do, say for instance, fighting. You fight a fresh fighter for 15 rounds or whatever it is. That's one thing that is, but like the road work that a boxer does, you see boxers running on the road. I think I love this video of Mike Tyson. He's like, I run at 4 a.m. because I know no one else has run at 4 a.m. It's like, yeah, because they run at 10 a.m., which is when you're resting, but right. But like the road work that they do is not to make them fit for boxing. It's sort of almost to add into that aerobic pace work, that recovery work, the stuff that bodybuilders do. Bodybuilders think that they do cardio in the mornings to like make sure that they're cutting and they're losing fat. And it's like, it doesn't really do that. It actually just makes you feel better, and it makes you able to hit your training, and it improves blood flow and improves recovery, so you can hit your training a little bit harder later on. So if you're someone who is going from just playing your sport and looking to do some more fitness, CrossFit is cool, good, go into it. But if you want to make sure that you have that extra element of specificity, you want to be working on things that you need, that you might be weak in, or say, for instance, you have particular things in the sport that, like speed and strength and that type of stuff, you're probably going to need to do some more focused work on plyometrics, powerlifting style type training. I wouldn't say weightlifting, because I think weightlifting is like a skill in itself, and it's with athletes. It's like you don't really need to teach that, because it's quite an effort to do that and learn that as a movement.
Yeah, like with weightlifting, it's always saying, it's not a debate, but it's kind of an opinion. And when people say, okay, but snatches, they develop your explosive power and anything and all that stuff. And like, you can do a box jump. You need to teach someone to snatch and to make it good. And you're you're exposing them to injuries that may happen because of going like overhead, and just makes it more complex. Okay. Okay. So it will be kind of easier to teach them maybe power cleans, or even not doing any weightlifting stuff. You can just make them jump, right? But kind of I don't know, I got my how do I say?
I'd say that like even then you don't need to teach them to jump or throw initially. Just like giving someone some solid weight training and then making them play their sport turns that weight training into explosive work. And I think that eventually, like you get, I think one of the biggest things is we see on social media, and we see how the elite athletes train, and and thank God for the internet, because like 20 years ago we didn't really know what was going on, but we understand that now. But then as well as that, like people don't need that at that time. They just need to develop like a good solid base, and then play in their sport. They do their thing, and then you get into more high velocity activities at an eventual stage. And it's just like, what does a 14-year-old kid need to do? They need to bench press, squat and deadlift, and do a bit of bodybuilding, and run around the block a few times, play their sport, and they're good. And it's like, okay, all right. But unfortunately, with everything that we see on the net and everything, you see people who are like doing, I don't know, I swear there's a few Instagram accounts out there where like the guy is either trying to trigger me, or he like just creates these exercises where he's got he's like juggling an upside down kettlebell whilst he's on his head, and he's trying to do all these very athletic things and recreate all of these very sport specific movements in the gym. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's how it works. Like you go to an NFL team's gym day, and they're squatting, benching, and they're doing,
and maybe power cleaning a lot.
Yeah.
Like, like they're power cleaning a lot with bad technique, right? It's like,
but it is people want to do the fancy thing. They want to do the thing that they saw, and they want to do that because they think that's what's going to get them there. And it's just like, nope, sorry, it's the same old story that you don't like to hear, of just doing the same boring things every day consistently. And it is about creating the smallest amount of adaptation and change for the longest time possible, and that's what's going to be the most effective. It's not about
so not always to chase the variance or the sexy stuff.
Yeah, like I mean, we see constantly with CrossFit is like, okay, with this whole situation with quarantine, people want variance, and And it's like, well, sorry, you've only got your body weight. So what can you do with that? You can do some body weight rows on the table. You can do some push-ups, handstand push-ups, lunges, squats. You can throw around a bag of books. That's about it. Like, I think this is a good opportunity for people to go through a bit of learning and to be like, all right, I'm gonna look at my training in a 3-day split, 3 days on, 1 day off, or whatever it is, and they can focus on just trying to improve movements just a little bit at a time. I did 3x10 last week. I'm going to do 3x12 this week and 3x14 the next week, and just bit by bit. It doesn't have to be constantly varied all the time. I think it needs to be effective variance. That's one thing I'd say people need to understand is like, there is just constant variance for the sake of it, but then there's like effective variance. You need to learn a skill. You need to get some headway with a movement before you then move on to the other movements. I think to sort of circle back to your point with the core stability thing, one of the things I took away from when I did the OPEX assessment course was you need to hold a Sorensen for 2 minutes before you do any loaded hinging. I was like, oh shit.
Who in the world can do this?
Yeah, right. I'm like, so that is really that's demonstrating that like you need to be able to manage your own body weight through this pattern before you then start to try and do it with external load, even then through a dynamic fashion, and I like sort of, the idea of variance of like, I remember I worked with an athlete once, and she used to come into a class, and she was so out of shape that the only thing that I could do that sort of actually like create any element of response was, all right, we're going to go through this workout. You're going to go on your assault bike and you're just going to do until you see 1 minute. When you get off, you can go on, you can do 20 step ups onto a jerk block. So it wasn't even that high. And I was like, you're just going to go through that whilst everyone else goes through this 8-minute AMRAP. And that's what you're going to do. You're just going to keep going. And it was the same thing for like, it was the same, there's a few different variations. It was like, you're going to hold a plank on a box. But it was like, just trying to make sure that she was doing something that, as James Fitzgerald says, that like she could express, and I think that's an important point.
Yeah, I kind of had this epiphany. I had an athlete for personal training, and that was like my first exposure. I already owned a gym for 2 years, a CrossFit box, and that was the first time when someone came, and I just couldn't put her through the kind of group classes. I couldn't give her the foundation sessions and just go to the workouts because she couldn't kind of squat. And not because she didn't have any range of motion, she just couldn't stand up from squat. Mm-hmm. So, and I was like, oh, okay, this situation I'm not used to. This kind of first time that I have a client who, it's not that she can do some knee push-ups. She can't really hold a plank. She can't stand up from a squat because it's just too hard for her. Her knees cave in and she really struggles. So we started with private sessions with PT. And I remember, our workouts were half an hour. Why half an hour? Because I told her that I have nothing to do with her for an hour. Like we were doing sets of 5 box squats really high, just 5 box squats, some plank on a box, and kind of few sets resting. And after half an hour, she was done. She was like enough. But in a month, she progressed through it, and she could get into a good squat. She could do some good air squats. She could hold a good plank. And from there, we kind of progressed to group class. But that was like first time when I met someone who was pretty young, but in the same time, they're like not in shape. And then I understood that like, okay, group class fitness is not for everybody. And I started to understand that coach maybe has something more to offer, and that not everyone is ready for group fitness classes. And kind of started to get into OPEX, and then I did my OPEX course and everything from there. What I wanted to ask you is, now with the quarantine, I don't want to talk about the workouts in quarantine because it's a topic for an hour of talk, right? Because we can talk about it like for a day. But what I do want to talk about a little bit is now we can see a lot of coaches who get into remote coaching. People who just say, okay, there is an opportunity. I don't have a job. I can't train PT. I can train group classes. Now it's an opportunity to do some remote coaching. And maybe I have even athletes that are asking for it. And a lot of coaches get into this field. And what I want to ask is, what in your opinion is kind of, the value of having a coach, remote coaching, or just having a coach? Because I understand it, but I just want to hear it from you.
Well, I think that you sort of, a lot of people see it as, the remote coach is just providing workouts. And I think that if you're a coach and you see it as just that, and I think a lot of people do when they first start off, and I think that it's understandable because that's essentially like what your day-to-day is, or like that's what your operations are, right? You're focusing on what you're going on there, but you've got to look deeper into that, and you've got to look behind that almost, and I think that this is sort of where, and I'll put it into sort of context of like a gym, because I think that people have experience with this, right? You have a CrossFit gym, and I think that people start off CrossFit gyms because they understand the benefit to it. They understand that there's like, people are going to be getting fit. They're going to be doing something that's productive. They're going to have a support network behind that. And what ends up happening over time is that the focus just becomes on, okay, well, what are the workouts? Okay, we've got a boot camp class now, so what are we doing there? Okay. And it becomes more and more towards the finer details, and there's not really much attention being paid to how the finer details affect the bigger picture, right? So you've got to be looking at the finer details of things, and you've also got to be looking at the bigger picture. So I think if you're someone who's trying to get into remote coaching, you've got to understand. I just recently put up a blog post about this, so I'll go over those 4 points in the blog post. First of all is like, what is the problem that you need to solve? I think this is one of the biggest things that for me personally was like huge. I literally thought that everyone wanted an individualized program because I wanted one and I liked it and it worked for me. So I was like, yeah, of course everyone wants this. And if I tell people on Instagram that this is the best way, they will believe it. And it's like, no, that doesn't actually exist. Like, you've actually got to get a bit deeper, and you've got to understand what is the problem you're trying to solve for that person. Is it something that like they work flat out, they have a hard time scheduling in any training, they need a bit of accountability, they need to understand how they can just adjust things with their schedule, things like that. They need to be just pointed in the right direction. Or is it more that someone needs guidance through a competitive fitness journey? They need to have confidence in what they're doing every day, and they need to have someone who's on top of them with their sleep and their nutrition and things like that. Because let's face it, people who look for coaching in terms of competitive fitness, they don't have any issues with working hard. They might have an issue with like what they do and the effectiveness of what they do and whether they're doing the right thing. But generally speaking, they're compliant, they work hard, and they do the right thing. But you still need to have some eyes on the road as well as the peak, and you need to make sure that they are ticking the boxes in terms of their lifestyle. So I think first of all, figure out the problem that you're trying to solve for the individual. If you're a remote coach, it's cool because you've got 20 clients, you've got 20 different problems that you can solve. And I think that when you see remote coaches taking on board excess of say 30, 40 people, obviously depending on their skill set, that's where it becomes more difficult because you've got more problems to try and solve. I think that second of all, you've got to make sure that like you differentiate yourself from the crowd a little bit. So that's pretty easy. It's, we see a lot of like fitness influencers just literally just throwing out programs and throwing out workouts, and, they make things flashy and they make things look nice aesthetically so that people buy $10 products. And that makes them money. And it's like, okay, cool. All right. If you find that you get if someone gets enjoyment out of giving people that type of level of service, and then I don't know, like I don't personally vibe with that, just because it's like I want to make sure that people are doing the stuff that I'm giving them, right? I want to make sure there's actually making an effect. I think that like, if you are trying to coach people, just make sure that you're talking to them. You're not trying to talk to the person you want to be in the future, or trying to talk to other coaches that you might look up to. And, you know, I've spoken about, energy systems and things like this to clients, and a lot of them don't care. Like, a lot of them are just like, what's going to get me to my goal? What's going to solve my problem? And that's where their focus is. And then I think what was the other point as well? So sort of speaking to their language, what differentiates you. I forgot the last point, but I think generally speaking, if you are looking to go into remote coaching, you're not going to get success right off the bat unless like you are an influencer, you're famous, or you're aligned with a famous group. So you've got to be somewhat patient with it, and just focus on doing like the real simple things really well. You know, serving the clients that you have. And one thing that I've always, I'd say one heuristic I've always sort of fallen back on whenever I've felt under the sort of under the pressure in terms of like programming, and I go on the Instagram for 10 minutes and all of a sudden I get depressed about me not doing this and that and the other. And it's like, I get into all of this like comparison, which I think everyone does, right? I just basically bring it back to like, coach the shit out of the people that you work with. And that means like, just send them a text message, those people you haven't spoken to in a bit, send them a text message. You'd be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? How's training going? How's life going? Take interest in the people that you work with. They have a lot of other things going on in their lives that are not around fitness. And I think that like, if you can try to talk to people about that type of stuff, if you can try to, get into other types of conversations. Like I remember one guy I used to work with, and his personal training sessions, he would only talk about music, and he would talk about, the news, or he would just talk about like general stuff, and it was never about fitness. And I was like, fucking hell, like this guy's got, a lot of like regular clients, but he figured out what it was he was talking to that person about for that hour. And the fitness was going on in the background, but he was there. And I sort of like think to myself, like, yeah, I need a little bit more of that, because I'm a little bit too focused on the details. And I would say that like, if you have a small group of people right now and you're looking to grow that, the best way to do that is by coaching the hell out of the people that you have a steady stream of content that goes out that educates people. You establish expertise, but don't overshoot it, because I think a lot of people get caught up in that and they just try to chase it. And they think, if I put out X amount of posts, I will get X amount of clients. And then all of a sudden it's just like, no, if you've got a steady stream of content going out, so you just stay present, you stay in people's ear, and you're doing a really good job with your clients, usually that is going to come together at some stage and you will grow over time. If you're in a rush to do it, it's probably the wrong industry to be in.
Yeah, someone told me not long ago that if you're a coach, that's an industry where you'll never be rich, you'll always be working.
That's completely true. Yeah, yeah.
It's like you never will get to the point when you can just get your dividends or anything like this, and just live your life quietly. You'll always be working, and that's okay.
No, and I just think that you get a lot of people who are just. I'm not too sure what it is, but like it just seems to be, and I almost had this initially with remote coaching, that it was like remote coaching was a way out of this or what. And it's like, no, it's not. I thought remote coaching was just going to make me be able to train like a professional athlete. And it's like, no, it's not. When I started remote coaching full time, I went like, yes, like I didn't have to juggle things around as much. And yes, I didn't have to coach at a gym, and I didn't have to do this and I didn't have to do that. But I made a conscious decision to be like, I need to train less so I can focus more on this. And this is sort of probably, I would say like longer term. I'd say that if you're a coach, you need, that's sort of this whole like being passionate about your job and everything like that. This all sounds cute on Instagram and everything like that. But you have to have some like tangibles at the end of the day. You need to be making sure you earn enough money that supports you. You need to make sure that you have something that like looks like it can grow over time. But like eventually you will get to the point where you're like, oh crap, I'm like putting a lot of effort into this. And that is where passion, I would say, starts to come into it a little bit more. And that's where you have to be like a little bit more like, well, I chose this and I like doing this more than something that I hate. And a lot of people go out there and they do jobs that are not interested in it.
Yeah. I think, we're an hour and 10 minutes into this. So I think this will be the last question from me. If you have anything else to add, would be great. But I think this will be the last topic we will touch for this podcast. And one more thing I want to add is where we can find you. The audience, where they can find you. I'll add the links, of course, but just give us some.
Well, you, Vlad, can always just send me a text message. So please don't put my phone number up on the show notes.
I will.
So if you are on social, I'm at lj.holmes. So that's HOLMES, like Sherlock Holmes. No relation though, unfortunately. A lot of people like to make that joke, but I like to stamp that joke out before they...
My friends joke about the LJ.
But if you go on there, there's link in the bio. You can see Odyssey .training, which is my other sort of my remote coaching that I do with Andy Edwards, and that's where you can see the base program. We have base, and then we also have base at home. So if you want home workouts, which are fairly structured, there's enough variance in there to keep you interested. But as well as that, there's...
it's bad you're talking about the Odyssey base, because I take a lot of ideas from them for my athletes. No, they will just leave me. That's okay.
No. But then, and then on my website, which is also in my bio, you can see my blog and subscribe to email lists and do all of that stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.